Let's take a look at some of the characteristics of a great strategy model. First off, I believe that it needs to have a limited number of perspectives. It needs to capture the existing strategy. It needs to identify what your key objectives are, what's to be done, not how to do it. It needs to be clear that it shows the main hypothesis of how those objectives link to create success. It needs to be clear on what the organization's priorities need to be, but it doesn't need to respect the organization chart. The description of each objective should be straightforward, it's just a verb and a noun. And it's got to be memorable. It's got to be top of mind or people will not be able to execute on that strategic intent. Let's step through them, based on a number of perspectives. The initial concept of the balanced scorecard describes 4 perspectives. Financial, what are your financial goals and how well are you achieving them? Customer, what your customers need from your organization and how well are you meeting those needs? Internal, what are your internal processes and how well are they performing? And finally, the enablers, what are the underpinning competencies, culture, and enabling structures that you need to be successful? It needs to capture the existing strategy and identify what the key objectives are within that strategy. The dilemma we have in many organizations is the strategy is contained in a whole bunch of words which are very confusing to the organization. We need to be able to extract from those strategic statements what are the core objectives that we should be paying attention to, and help the organization remember what those core objectives are, even though they can go back to that source document later to learn more. It also needs to honor people in the organization by explaining how these objectives link together to create success. So in this case, our overall objective is to enable business success. To do that, we need to meet 3 customer needs. 1, support the business unit service levels. 2, enable business growth. And 3, balance risk and return. So the arrows explain how the objectives link towards creating overall success. In the internal perspective, we need to make sure that we execute with agility. And if we do, that'll help the business unit service levels, enable business growth, and balance risk and return. So how are we going to execute with agility? Well, there's 2 core things we need to do. Leverage our opportunities, and secondly, be a part of the business. Finally, beneath the internal objectives are the enablers. In this case, develop key capabilities, build a P4 culture, and exploit value-adding technology supports everything that's above it. And we'll show that in the following format. So the strategy map shows you the arrows of the cause and effect relationship between the strategic objectives and everything above it. The strategy map needs to be very clear about your priorities. It's not enough that we outline what the strategic objectives are. We need to allocate the strategy focus for the next year. So think of that as a weighting. If this is 100% of your strategy, what percentage of that 100% would we allocate to each of these strategic objectives? In this example, you can see that the theme or key objective for this year is all about being a part of the business so that we can execute with agility in order to support the business units and enable growth, all in aid of enabling business success. So the weighting allows everyone in the organization to understand where their priorities should be, whether that's headcount, time, managerial focus. We need to make sure that the strategy map describes the objectives, and those objectives typically don't respect the organization chart. If we take a strategy map and cascade it down to different departments, each department will have a different responsibility against achieving those objectives. So enable business growth. Within maintenance, maybe they've got to reduce downtime. Development, maybe it's all about agile. For customer support in this case, maybe it's enabling self-help. And hardware is all about leveraging investments. The idea is the departments will each see a different role against which they contribute to the strategic priorities. We need to make sure that the names of these strategic objectives are simple. We're suggesting 3 words, a verb and a noun. So as this particular strategy map we're looking at got distributed to the whole organization, we kept the names simple, but they added in a description of what that objective means and why it's important to the organization. So the title doesn't need to carry the full weight of communicating what the objective is about. The description is going to add a little bit more detail and a quick reminder to those who are looking at the strategy map. What you're looking at here is a card that was distributed to all employees and stakeholders in order to help them understand what are the objectives of this IT department. And then finally, it's got to be memorable. That card became part of a game that was used to onboard new employees. It was used as a scorecard to report performance back to the rest of the corporation and stakeholders. It was used as an incentive to make sure that the activities that employees did lined up with those strategic objectives.